talkingballocks.co.uk. I'm standing in as host for your usual host, Hona, who isn't here, but last we heard he was in search of a defence in Hull. But we still have all your usual lineup. We have Poyser, we have Mez, and we have Rogers. We'll bring you the roundup of this week's games, the in-depth championship roundup, followed by a very emotive club versus country debate. You'll want to hang on for that one. And then we'll finish off with Johnny Poyser's piece of information. All brought to you with no sponsorship whatsoever. So, this week's roundup. We're going to start with Mez, Arsenal-Tottenham.
Yeah, very disappointing game for an Arsenal fan. The least you expect from your club is for your players to be up to play their local rivals. And I was just really disappointed today with Arsenal's energy levels. I was particularly disappointed with Sanchez. Something that I noticed today and also in the Bayern game is that he's losing the ball far too easily and he's trying to do far too much in the game. He needs to get the ball, beat his man and play the ball. But instead he's trying to take on too many people. And Arsenal, to be honest, today we were really lucky to come away with a draw because Spurs played really well.
Yeah, I think we should give a huge amount of credit to Spurs. I thought they played really, really well today. I mean, it's a well-known fact that I think they probably, as a team, run the furthest in terms of kilometres per match, more than any other team in the Premier League at the moment. And you can see why, because I think Lamela, more than anybody else, really showed that with his pressing throughout the game, and it just sort of led everybody else on.
A little thing for me to point out a few things on this game that I noticed. First of all, big congratulations to Ozil. First player ever to do an assist for 6 games in a row. We've all been talking about Jamie Vardy, but Ozil is actually becoming good for you guys at Arsenal. Finally.
Finally.
I don't think he's finally become good. Hasn't he got like the most assists since he's been in the Premier League?
But he's actually getting recognised for it now, isn't he? He's always been one of these players. I think a lot of Arsenal fans have gone, he's never recovered from what he had at Real Madrid.
I think with Ozil, you've got to just realise that he's a luxury player. Like, he's never going to be the player that's going to track back. But what he can give you is he can give you that killer ball to get you a goal.
I agree with that, but using Lamela as the example, you would think he was a luxury player, but he was diving in for tackles all over the place. That one where he nicked the ball off Czech, that was something you wouldn't normally expect. You would never expect Ozil to do that.
No.
The other 2 little things that I had on it, Joel Campbell, I think he was very lucky to escape any punishment for slapping, I didn't see who it was, but in the face.
Oh, Danny Rose.
Yeah. Not that it was a red card offence, but the referee could have interpreted differently. That's what I mean by that. He was lucky the ref didn't see it another way. And also, what was Giroud and Vertonghen doing? They looked like they were trying to wrestle each other to get into the ground together. What were they doing?
I think they were giving that stereotypical footballer a couple of girls with handbags, on a Saturday night. It wasn't pretty.
No, it really wasn't.
It's a North London derby, Poyser. Everybody likes to get close. So, Mez, you must be happy to get a point having gone 1-0 down.
Oh, yeah, very, very much so. I mean, I really thought that we would be able to win it, but as obviously the game went on, just begging for that goal to go in. And who to get it but a Talking Ballocks favourite in Kieran Gibbs?
People might not know this. Yeah, people might not know this, but we were having an argument where Mez was claiming that Kieran Gibbs was England's best left-back choice. And we were telling him, no. And when he came on today, I sent a message saying, oh, here you are, Mez, your saviour's coming on. I ate my words, didn't I?
Right. It sounds like you've got nothing more to say, Mez. 1-1 in the North London derby after a 5-1 beasting by Bayern. So a good week for Arsenal all round. So we'll move on. Poyser, I believe you're going to talk to us about life on the south coast of Bournemouth.
Yeah, well, just a few stats to read out for it first. 20 shots, 5 goals, 16 corners. You wouldn't think that's the losing side, really, would you?
Do you mean 5 shots on goal?
Yeah, 5 shots on target. So there are 20 shots, 5 of them were on target. They had 16 corners against Newcastle's 2 shots, 1 on target, no corners. Bournemouth will go down this season because they don't have a finisher. That is all it is for them. They haven't got that goal poacher, and it showed in this game. Matt Ritchie, I keep saying about him every week, had a brilliant game again for them. Kept providing the ball into the box, but there was no one there to finish it for them. And I think also big plaudits to Rob Elliott. Blooming good game from him, assuming the fact that Newcastle were worried he was going to play in goal for them. And he wasn't 100% fit, as they revealed at the end of the game. He's still suffering from an injury.
I think it's like that game on FIFA where you have like 29 shots compared to your opponent's 1, and sometimes somehow lose 2-1, and then blame it on the lag.
I will say though, the goal that Bournemouth let in, the defending was absolutely terrible. So their shooting was terrible, but they should at least get simple clearances.
Well, they need to get a goal in because both of their goalkeepers have got mistakes in them.
Yeah.
There was no conviction in that finish at all.
No.
Shooting practice for sure all next week for Portsmouth.
You do sit there, when they showed you this picture of Callum Wilson just sat there, obviously their main striker, just with his head in his hands, like, oh. You just think he would have loved to have been out there, he'd have converted some of them, he can guarantee it.
Well, especially if they're creating 20 chances. So, Poyser, you think they're in trouble? Harry Redknapp thinks they'll be fine. What do you know different?
I just don't see them with any conviction in the final third of that pitch. Since they've lost Callum Wilson, they seem to be going down and down in spiral, and they just don't seem to be that killer instinct that a team needs. If you look at all the other teams around them, they've at least got that one goal threat. I don't see that from them.
I think it could be argued that Harry Redknapp and Johnny Poyser probably would manage a team in the same way.
I do tend to agree with Poyser though. They do only seem to have one sort of style of playing, Bournemouth, and if they are going to stay up, they need to win games at home against teams like Newcastle. So the fact that they haven't, and they've failed to convert like 20 opportunities, it doesn't bode well at this particular point.
No, I think they certainly need a plan B. Talking of plan Bs, Sunderland, Rodgers.
Yeah, so what I've got to say, we've just been talking about one team that are going down, Sunderland are another.
No signs of them toughening up?
Well, the point is they've got 6 points, right, after 12 games, and they've only played 3 teams from last year's top 7. In their next coming fixtures are Crystal Palace at home, Stoke away, before they get a really tough run of Arsenal, Watford, Chelsea, Man City and Liverpool. If they've only got 6 points now, I could argue that they're only going to have 6 points in about 7 games' time as well.
Well, that is a concern.
However, I would like to point out, unless you're going to say something else about Sunderland.
No.
About the penalty. The other week on here, I was ranting about using retrospective action. Bertrand completely won that penalty yesterday. He did not get taken out, so he'd be getting a letter from me saying, "Oi, that's not allowed."
Do you regularly write to players on such subjects?
When I become leader of FIFA, I will be.
Just checking. Southampton still looking good for relegation. Sorry, good for Europe.
I still think they will be. Yes, I still keep thinking they might have got relegated at the start of the season. It will haunt me for the whole of this season, but I still think they might even get in that top 4 sneakily.
So let's just bring this one to a quick vote. No hope for Sunderland.
Agreed, even with Big Sam.
Yeah, no hope.
Excellent. Well, moving on. I managed to watch some of the Man United game, which, as a Man United fan, was quite pleasing because at the end of the day, we had more goals than them at the end of the game. It's safe to say Jesse Lingard looked energetic. He was making runs off the ball. He was showing a bit of trickery around the box, which was sort of what we're expecting from Memphis, and hasn't really happened. But I think the key for Man United, despite some disquiet from the fans, was defensive solidity. In the long term, I think that will make more teams come at us and try and beat us and leave themselves open. Discuss.
Yeah, defensively, we can have no complaints. What is it, like 7?
We're 555 minutes without conceding a goal now.
Yeah, obviously this is a good thing. However, it does mean that we are less fluid yes, less vibrant with our attacking play. But that's what you expect with Van Gaal. But what I worry about Van Gaal is that he will limit players like Memphis, players like Lingard, who admittedly he must have faith in him, because obviously he started his first game in charge last season, did Lingard, before getting injured. So he must like Lingard, and hopefully he doesn't limit him the same way that I blame him for limiting Di Maria.
Well, that's a good point.
So I will say on that game quick, one, Berahino, what the heck was that miss all about that he had? And two, we all spoke the other week about players for England, maybe Lingard. A young player.
You mean for the Euros, Poyser?
Yeah, maybe. A young player to make an impact.
Can I just quickly leap to the defence of Berahino? He has been out injured for a considerable amount of time, and this was his first game back.
Had he broken his nose, Mez?
I don't know.
No, so what was he worried about getting hit in the face?
That's literally what it was. He just closed his eyes. Like, I don't want to head of this.
I can only assume that was rust. But I would say that I was really impressed with Lingard and Martial. I think Van Gaal needs to start doing a Fergie and start putting more faith in the United youth players, because they certainly seem more hungry than a certain number 10 that plays for you at the moment.
Look, it's a good day for you to mention that, Mez. I believe Mr. Van Gaal gave a debut to Cameron Borthwick-Jackson, which is not a name I'd want to spell on a shirt. Made his debut at 18 years old. Jesse Lingard, Martial, Cameron Borthwick-Jackson. He seems to have given chances to a few young players.
Yeah, if you go back to last season, we had Blackett, we had McNair, Wilson.
I think it's time he starts putting more faith in the youth.
I think to be fair to Van Gaal, he is known for that. He's the person who brought through Muller at Bayern, and I think Schweinsteiger might have already been established by that point, but he moved him into centre midfield. So he has got a way of moulding these young players.
And he seems to do it at key moments as well, which is something that Mr. Mourinho, who we'll get to a little later, could learn from, though.
Well, I think, we will get onto that, but I think Mourinho's more of I'll buy the polished article.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rather than polish a diamond, which is why my pick, Mr. Loftus-Cheek, isn't getting a game.
Well, no, good point indeed. Maybe we should sign him up.
Maybe.
And just a quick note, we've taken the mick out of Mr. Poyser for suggesting that Southampton will go down. There were suggestions from a certain Mr. Rogers that Marcus Rojo would leave Man United fairly sharpish, and he now seems to be somehow the most important player in the team this week.
Well, I was only basing on that, and the fact that he wasn't playing, and he was rumoured to be shipped out. The fact that he is now playing ahead of Darmian. Is Darmian injured? Is he? What's up with him?
Was he playing at right back?
Did he play?
No, he wasn't. He must be injured. He must be injured.
So I think somehow Rojo's got back into his good books, and I haven't got a problem with Rojo as a player. I think he does a decent job, and he seems to be a passionate enough player, which is what you want. But yes, he has made a good turnaround, and I like the fact that Van Gaal has brought him back in.
Excellent. Right, moving on. Poyser, Watford-Leicester.
So, Watford-Leicester, Jamie Vardy now equal top consecutive goal scorer in the Premier League. Shame about his antics on the pitch, though, yesterday. Did any of you see about that?
I did see what he did, yeah.
He basically told the linesman to beep off and put his middle finger up at them. Yeah, when he caught him offside. So he may be getting a retrospective ban for that one, which will hurt all our dream teams, I'm sure, because we've all got him now, haven't we?
I've put him in. 9 games too late.
Hona still refuses to, but yep. Gomez, what a calamitous game he had for Watford, I think, on there. He was lucky to escape a red card, I think, for the penalty. He was at fault for the goal. He cost them that game.
There was no conviction behind that shot either, was there? It was a bit of a hiddler.
Yeah, that's all to say about that game, to be honest. It's Gomez's fault.
Fair enough. Anything to add, Mez?
Just another great week for Jamie Vardy. My only worry, if I was a Leicester fan right now, is are they going to be able to keep these players that are performing for them when the January transfer window comes around? That would be my only worry. Because
that is a big worry.
You can't tell me that someone like a Tottenham or a Liverpool wouldn't come in and spend the money on Jamie Vardy, because they would.
But Jamie Vardy, how he won that penalty, the first touch and the second touch immediately to take it around Gomez was class. You can't say anything else about it. But you always have that feeling in the back of your mind that it's Jamie Vardy who's really going to sign it.
Well, I think, like Mez says, maybe Liverpool or Tottenham.
But as we've proven with our one-hit wonders last week, in the podcast, who knows where this is going to go?
I would take Vardy over Berahino, and he was nearly a top player.
I think I'd do the same.
Yeah, definitely.
Right. Well, moving on to East Anglia, Mez, tell us about Norwich Swansea.
Yeah, this was an interesting game. I only saw the highlights on Match of the Day. Norwich managed to edge it 1-0, but it had plenty of chances. But I don't quite really know what's happened to Swansea. They started off really brightly, and yesterday, for example, they had 8 shots and they didn't manage to get a single shot on target. Norwich, on the other hand, had 9 shots and they managed to get 5 of them on target. Now, from the actual highlights itself, Norwich could have quite easily won this game by, 3 or 4 goals. Swansea just seem to have lost that edge in the final third, and Norwich were good money for their win.
As much as I hate to say it, I said a few weeks ago in my predictor article, I think Gary Monk's coming to the end of his time.
Well, it's quite timely. I think they've not won in 8. Is that correct? That's not a good record for a new manager in the Premier League.
And the problem with him is that he's at a club where they're so well run, you feel like another manager could just slip in.
Yeah.
Whereas if somebody comes in at Chelsea after Mourinho, they're going to have to do a whole load of work just to get it in motion again.
And I don't even know who. And the thing with Swansea as well, they seem to pull gems out. They tend to get these managers that no one thinks of, and then they turned out to be really good.
Well, good for a period of time.
Yeah.
But it just wasn't good enough yesterday from Swansea. I mean, they had 68% possession throughout the whole game, and to not be able to get a single shot on target, it's not good enough at this level.
Do you know what their answer is? Let's start it now. Bring back Michu.
Yeah. Well, he's still there. He's just injured. He's still there.
Bring back Michu. That will solve their problems.
Last I heard, he was due to be on his way to the Spanish 4th division, so maybe he's done something with the chairman's daughter that we need to know about. But, anyway, enough of that. So I watched the Everton-West Ham game, which I think will probably go down as a missed opportunity for both sides, both looking quite strong, I think, in the league. Lanzini's finish was eerily similar to Lingard's in the United game. And then shortly afterwards, the West Ham defence seemed to take a holiday. They should be ashamed. Poyser, help me out. How do you say his name?
Who was that, Ty?
Gerard Deulofeu.
Oh, Deulofeu?
Yeah, there we go. Him. Played a straight ball down the middle of the pitch. And I must say, Lukaku took it brilliantly to level the game. But how in the Premier League in 2015 you get done by a straight ball, I don't know. And I think when it comes to choosing the top 6 or top 7 come May, the two may well look back on this as 2 points lost.
You say Niall 2015 straight balls down the pitch. It just always brings back the heartache of World Cup 2006, where we went out to Germany and we got beaten by a goal kick.
Oh yeah,
that was embarrassing. And who was that in defence head? I mean, we might have had Matthew Upson or something ridiculous.
Yeah, quite possibly, and I think it was Gareth Barry made the mistake on the second goal. So
yeah.
But good
correlation there.
But a good record for Lukaku. That's his 7th game against West Ham, and he's managed to score in every single one. So he enjoys playing them.
He looks the true package when he's on form, though.
Oh, certainly.
Don't you think Chelsea would have benefited from keeping him?
Yeah.
Well, he's certainly better than Falcao.
Well, he's only 22, and you look at the amount of goals he's scored. He's a phenomenal player. I don't know why Chelsea would have let him go.
The only thing you can imagine is they've got a return clause in there.
I think they'd have taken it by now.
Well, he's not the complete package already, is he? So he's not got any chance of getting in a Mourinho team.
Good point.
So, Mez, do you want to move us on to Liverpool Palace?
Yeah, admittedly, I've only seen brief highlights of this because it wasn't on television. But from what I did see, Liverpool were actually the better side. They created a lot more opportunities than Palace. But Liverpool just didn't seem to want to score. They could have potentially got 3 or 4 goals. Christian Benteke, you'll see probably later on Match of the Day, he missed an absolute, almost clear chance to head it in to get the win for them, but he didn't take it. And to credit to Palace, they managed to steal the win. Really, they shouldn't have won.
That's Alan Pardew's approach, no?
Yeah, I mean they're getting results this year. They've got a good team, Palace.
They went for a bit of a sticky run, but they've got a good win today.
Yeah.
I must say though, like last week, I did enjoy Liverpool beating Chelsea, which is very rare for me to enjoy anything that Liverpool do. And I do like Jurgen Klopp, but it was nice to see the score pop up in the left-hand corner of the Arsenal game to see that Palace beating Liverpool. It's always good to be back to normal. Do
we think the Klopp kind of bubble is over? Is the honeymoon period over now? Is it?
Well, I said that last week that they would come fourth. They would get in the top 4, and I still think they will just about. But Tottenham are really.
January will be telling.
What would you do in January, Poyser, if you were Liverpool?
What would I do in January? I don't know who they're going to go for, but I think that Patrick Aubameyang will be a good player for them to bring in. And maybe even try and go for Hummels.
I think they would say, yes, we'll definitely do that, but I don't think Dortmund are going to go, yeah, go on, you take our 2 best players.
Depends how much money they throw.
That is the difficulty that Liverpool have. They're not in the Champions League.
So, okay, talking about enjoyable results, I believe Man City drew 0-0 at Aston Villa. Rogers, I believe you saw some of that one.
Yeah, I mean, truth be told, Man City should have won that game. They had the chances. They hit the woodwork. Guzan actually made a couple of good saves. But they just couldn't get the win, which is something that if you want to win the title, you need to do. And they had a chance to go further ahead with Arsenal dropping points today, and Arsenal will probably think the same. They had a chance to pull away a little bit. But you've got to give credit to Aston Villa. They've got a new manager come in. He's given a few fresh players a go. For instance, I think Charles Nzogby got an appearance today. So he's going to come in and see what he can do. And I hope for him, because I quite like Villa, I hope for him that he can get that together and make them stay in the Premier League.
So is that the new manager bounce, or is it just a bad day at the office for Man City?
I think the fact that Villa had a new manager means that any team like that is normally more difficult, unless you're Sunderland, to play against. And Man City, obviously, they've just qualified for the Champions League. Whether they were coming off a big high and struggled to get back up for it, could have played a factor.
I think City desperately missed Aguero today, and now with Wilfred Boney possibly injured as well, you've got to wonder where that attacking threat's going to come from, because Sterling didn't look particularly convincing up front.
Well, he tends not to. Still, point for Villa. That's one more step towards avoiding relegation. Yeah. Which brings us on, I think, to our final relegation battler of this week's roundup, which is Chelsea. Johnny Poyser, tell us about Chelsea and Stoke.
Oh, for the first time in 16 years that Chelsea have lost 3 games in a row. That tells you, for starters, how bad this is. They haven't had a clean sheet in 8 away games. 10th defeat in all competitions. It's all falling apart for them, isn't it? And this match was not a pretty match to watch. I mean, the ball that was played by Shaqiri was an absolute beautiful ball to get that goal. I think Stoke played really well.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, just to make a quick joke, you said that's the first time they haven't. They've lost 3 games in a row since 16 years ago. Isn't that when Chelsea's history started?
Good point.
They've only been about since 2005, right?
You are.
The one thing I would say, Matt, and you're going to like this, is the Remy penalty decision that wasn't given. Remy could have very easily have gone, oh, he's coming out for me, I'm going to go down. But he decided not to. He jumped over the goalkeeper and chased the ball down.
That is exactly my point, though. He could have won the penalty there. If he'd have gone down, it's a penalty. But he, credit to him, stayed up. Which is why I think these penalties that Bertrand won in the Southampton game need to be eradicated. Because it's not a fair level playing field.
Could Remy not have had a penalty?
He could have done because he was obstructed. But he's not going to get one unless he goes down. Which is why I think we need to turn it into... If you've got fouled and you can't stay up, it's a penalty. If you have to move out of the way of something, I don't think that necessarily means it's a penalty.
One thing I did like was Arnautovic at the end of the game. He was asked by the reporter saying, how does it feel after the comments that Jose Mourinho made about you when they were Inter Milan together, saying that, Arnautovic is like a little child. And then obviously getting that victory, he just smiled and sort of said to them, it felt good. I thought that was brilliant. And the last thing I want to say about this game, Jack Butland, what a great season he's having. And you know what? He's putting some real pressure on Joe Hart, I think.
Well, it's good that we've got 2 decent goalers, because if you take away Hart and you take away Butland, you're left with John Ruddy.
Well, you think about it, Fraser Forster's not going to be in for the Euros, is he? So it's...
Don't you mean Paul Ruddy?
Yeah, Paul Ruddy.
But yeah, Jack Butland, I think he's going to really impress and carry on. And you know what? I'd almost say he could replace Joe Hart. Who's going to be a better goalkeeper to have? A guy at top tier who's not making that many saves or that much action, or someone in mid-table who's impressing really with some great saves and doing a lot of action in the game. Let's be honest, England are a mid-tier team when it comes to a Premier League. It'd be better.
Interesting point. So, one last area of issue to bring up. Should Ryan Shawcross have seen red?
What, for smelling?
I guess it was almost an elbow across the throat of Diego Costa.
I think you have special dispensation when it's Diego Costa.
Yeah.
Diego Costa over the last couple of games has tried his luck. He did it against Liverpool, against Skirtle, and Skirtle just went, what? You picked the wrong person. And he's done it again with Shawcross, and Shawcross has just sort of gone, who? Who do you think you are, mate? He's picking on the wrong people to start a fight with at the moment.
But I do think you're right, Bryce, in that it's like when Joey Barton got kicked around a couple of years ago. I think they were playing Wolves, and Carl Henry did a complete job on him. But because of those sort of players, the referee subconsciously probably just turns a blind eye to it.
Good point. And he did look right at the incident, so that would seem to bear you out. Now, moving on slightly from the actual football, I believe we've been having a little bit of a mini debate here as to what if Mr. Mourinho gets sacked? Who is going to replace him? Johnny Poyser. Who should replace Jose Mourinho if he gets sacked?
All about bringing in the relegation specialist, Tony Pulis. It's got to be, surely. They're in a relegation fight. Bring in Pulis. No, seriously though, who out there is there that can actually do it? There's a couple of options, I think, which could do it. A returning Andre Villas-Boas. He has said that he is not staying at Zenit after this season. They said they don't want him. He's done really well over there as well, so maybe an option that become available for him. Other than that, I think they might go for someone completely unknown that we don't know about, to be honest.
Like yourself.
You know what? I'd put my name in now. I can't do any worse than what they're doing at the moment. Let's be honest about it. I mean, let's be truthful about it. you guys are reasonably decent level players for Sunday League. I think you could play better than Hazard is at the moment.
I think, going back to the manager thing, Big Sam, do you think he's secretly kicking himself, thinking, if I'd waited a few more weeks, I wouldn't have to have moved to Sunderland?
He did say he thought he could win the league with Man City. What's the difference with winning the league with Chelsea?
Yeah.
I think Tony Pulis is probably a little bit far out there, but I'll give you a nod, Poyser. Mez, who should you think would replace Mourinho if he gets sacked?
I think if they're looking to do a short-term option, so to just get them to the end of the season, I think you'd probably look at someone like maybe Gus Hiddink, and then maybe try and tempt, like Guardiola if he does leave Bayern. But I think if they want to sort the problem out now, I would take a bag full of money over to Southampton and I would ask for Ronald Koeman, because I think what he's managed to do at Southampton with the budget and the players that he's got is fantastic, and I think he could really get the best out of those group of players at Chelsea. So they would be my two options, whether they wanted to do a short-term fix or whether they wanted to have someone for the long term.
I like the Koeman one. That's a good shout, actually. I didn't even think of him.
No, yeah, there are some decent ones. I think I would agree with you that for short term, there's no one better than Gus Hiddink to come in. However, I think the most realistic may be a return for Carlo Ancelotti.
Yeah.
Big name.
It's a big name. He's been there before. Abramovich has got recent evidence of bringing back previous managers. And he is the biggest name left out there. I can see that he's available.
Do Chelsea need a big name, or do they need someone really good, really who's on the money, a bit more like Ronald Koeman, who's not a Champions League manager at the moment?
No, I see what you're saying, because to be fair to Chelsea, they've got the 2 Champions League finals, one with Avram Grant and one with Bobby Matthews or Roberto Di Matteo. So you don't necessarily need that big name to do it, and maybe Koeman is the person who could step up to that job.
Fair enough. I think Koeman is a really interesting shout. I myself, after initially discarding Tim Sherwood, in homage to your normal host, I'm going to go a little bit outside the box and go for the current manager of Monaco, Leonardo Jardim. I probably pronounced that wrong, Poyser. You can tell me how to do that one later. But his record, he's managed at Olympiacos and Sporting at Monaco. He seems to have won a few trophies and scored quite a few goals. And he also seems not to be worried about not staying anywhere for long, which, let's be honest, at the Chelsea job is exactly what you need. And he currently works for Monaco, who are owned by the Russians, so it may be a perfect fit. Failing that, of course, John Terry and or Didier Drogba. But I think we'll know how that will end.
The problem with John Terry is, if he did take over, there'd be no press conferences.
Yep, like I've said many a time, if he loses, you never see the guy. But I know Jardim, being at Monaco, being paid the old Russian money, I can see that helping sway him come to Chelsea. I think any Russian is probably quite high in the list. I wouldn't be surprised if Alexei Smertin suddenly turned up as Chelsea manager.
The one I did think about, and this is a bit of a weird one, well, not weird, but one that everyone's probably forgotten about, Fabio Capello.
No. Somebody else say no.
No.
You never know.
I think Fabio Capello, obviously he was manager of Russia, so he's probably Roman's best mate, but I think he's too old. I just think football's too old for him now, or he's too old for football.
He also didn't exactly endear himself to the Russians. Have they paid him off yet? I can't work it out, but
probably knock him off before they pay him off.
It doesn't seem a real choice. However, what we have shown is there are a lot of options out there for Chelsea. Plenty to debate on the Talking Ballocks Facebook page or on Twitter. But anyway, that brings us to the end of the Premier League update, the Premier League review, which brings us on to the in-depth Championship update. Mr. Honer passed me a note that said, talk about how great Middlesbrough are, which, there we go. Hapless Borough, sunk 3-0 by Hull. Goals from Diami, Klukas and Huddleston. Borough barely had a shot, my sources tell me, and Hull have not conceded in 5. Not going so well in the northeast. In fact, manager Karanka said they need to show more ambition. Take the bones out of that one, Honer, when you get back. Which moves us on to our real serious debate, which I believe Mr. Poyser is chomping at the bit to get started with. Club or country? Storm in a teacup seems to have broken out between Chris Coleman and Arsene Wenger, which poses the question for us: who should have the say on what a player does? The club, the country, or somebody else? Go for it, Poyser.
So, club v country. I hear a lot of excuses in the papers, in the media, and from fans. Players get injured when they're playing for clubs. It costs us a title. It costs us trophies. It costs us all this. It's a privilege to play for your country. It's an honour. Are we all saying, as people who don't want club v country, get rid of the World Cup, get rid of the Euros? What would we do in our summers when that's on? Get rid of the Olympics games. So anyone who says, I don't want country games, you're trying to ruin football.
That's your job.
No, it normally is, but today it isn't. I'm trying to save football. But also, all these fans out there that say, oh yeah, but my players go out there and they get injured, so they come back and they can't play. Cool. Didn't stop United winning all them trophies when they had a team full of internationals. That's all I'm going to say on it.
Fair enough. Simple and clear. Mez, I believe you're going to take the side of Arsene Wenger, perhaps unsurprisingly. Break it down for me.
I'm fully behind the clubs on this. I'm not, anti-England or anti-international in any way, but I'm trying to think of this as if I actually, was the owner of one of these football clubs, and I would have invested millions and millions of pounds in the development of these players, and to have one of them go off and play internationally in sometimes pointless friendlies, and then for them to come back injured, that has a direct effect on my team, I don't think is right. I think it should be up to a club to decide whether they release their player for international duty. Nobody knows a player better than a manager that works with them 5 days a week, or 6-7 days a week, however many days it is. You can't expect someone like Roy Hodgson or Chris Coleman to know what's best for Aaron Ramsey when he speaks to him and he trains with him, maybe once or twice every 3 months. He should be listening to the club managers who see the player on a daily basis.
But this is what Chris Coleman said, wasn't it? He goes, Wenger hasn't spoke to him.
And that is a very good point to make.
He said Wenger has not picked up the phone or spoke to me about it, and I dare say that's the same for most clubs and most international teams. There's no communication between them.
But then you could argue, why does Wenger need to pick up the phone and justify why he?
You just said it should be his decision. It should be.
Yeah, but why should he have to justify that? But why does he have to justify that to Chris Coleman? He doesn't have to justify that to Chris Coleman. It should come out. If there's an international week, there should be a list of players that the team releases that say these players are eligible to play, these players are injured, so they're not eligible. And that should be it.
Would that not end in a situation where the list of players that comes through to Roy Hodgson or Chris Coleman is essentially blank, or includes myself and yourself and not a lot more?
I don't think so. I don't think that club managers are against international football, and I also don't think that they would have particularly happy players if they were blocked for no good reason for playing for their country. But I think players have got to realise, and international managers have got to realise that these clubs pay the players their wages every single week. So at the end of the day, it's like us. We've all got jobs. So if my boss said to me, well, you can't go off somewhere, like abroad, and, play football because I want you to stay here because I pay your wage, well, then I've got to stay where I'm being paid. So I think the club should be the ones that are in control of that.
Agreed, but I still think, like Chris Coleman said, it's all about communication, isn't it? I think if there's a reason why Aaron Ramsey, for instance, I only use this because in the media, why didn't Wenger pick up the phone and go, look, mate, just so you know, he's been suffering with an injury. This is what's been going on. Could you maybe not play him for the full game for me?
Because Wenger's got a squad of 25 to 30 people. What's he going to do?
His job as the manager.
Is he going to call every single international manager? No.
I dare say he's got a couple of secretaries.
Yeah, but why?
It doesn't seem an unreasonable request if he has a problem to give somebody a call and say, I'd rather you didn't play them. If he's going to ring all 30 managers and say you can't play them, then maybe that's something else. But surely international football may not be what it used to be, but surely lots of players, it's a passionate thing for them to play for their country. If it comes down to Arsene Wenger and his medical team, then Aaron Ramsey is going to be fit about 3 years after he retires. Rogers, you're disarmingly quiet. Give us your opinion.
Well, it is a difficult one for me because I half agree with Poyser and I half agree with Mez. It really is difficult because I want to see the best players play at the World Cup. However, I see no point in them playing in meaningless friendlies where they play 45 minutes and you give caps out willy-nilly to players like, I don't know, I'll say Jamie Vardy, but obviously he deserves him, but players who are currently having a good run of games, Ryan Mason, for example, who may never ever play in the Euros. So it is difficult because obviously the England manager needs to see his players play in games, but are these games really worth playing in? Is it better to just have training sessions? Like that is the problem because you want the best players in the World Cup. You don't want to waste their time playing in meaningless friendlies. And injuries do happen. For example, Dean Ashton never really played again after getting injured in the England training session by I think Sean Wright-Phillips. So the club, who have just paid out, West Ham probably paid Norwich however much money they did for Dean Ashton, have now not got a player anymore. So you can see why. Obviously that could happen in their own training session, it could happen in a match, but you don't want to heighten that by giving them meaningless friendlies to play in.
So less friendlies and make them talk to each other.
Home international tournament. A competitive tournament, the home international, as we spoke about a few weeks ago, that would be the best solution.
I think we're all going to disagree with you there, but in fact, I'm writing an article on the subject. But yeah, for your international, certainly makes more sense. I'm just going to throw one out there to you because my mind works differently to most people's, much to my frustration. What about leaving it up to the players? Surely then it will become self-policing. If you don't want to play for your country, don't play for your country, but don't moan when you don't get picked.
I can see what you're saying there. The main problem with that is if you have so Paul Scholes, or Jamie Carragher got such abuse when they retired from international football early. You can see how especially in our country, the Sun and the Mirror and the Daily Mail would be going, "You traitor! Why aren't you playing for your country?" That's what I can see happening.
That's equally a good point.
I think players need protection from people like the media,
from the general public
and the fans. So I think giving them the decision, like Matt said, as we've seen from previous years, I don't think that would really help.
I told you my mind works differently. So there we go. Still, lots of points to get involved in if you want to debate it on the Facebook page or on Twitter, or just give us a call. We're all in the phone book. Has anyone got anything else to add, Mez? Poyser? Rogers? Go. Say more words.
Closing statement on it for me, you kill off international football, our summers get boring, where we no World Cups, no European competitions. We'll all be sat here waiting for transfers to go through that will only go through on the last transfer day of the window, and it will get damn boring.
Good point. Excuse me for sounding suspicious. It does sound like you're building up to make another Home Nations tournament pitch, so I'm going to chop you off there. Which brings us, I think, to our final section of the podcast, Poyser's piece of information. He told me before the show that he has a funny little one, so let's hope it's to do with something else.
Right, a little bit of a snippet that I've read about this week. So we had Real Madrid versus PSG in the Champions League this week, didn't we?
Mm-hmm.
We did.
big international tournament, a massive game in theory for these two teams, two of the biggest clubs in the world, I would say, in terms of the players that they've got. Not necessarily PSG being one of the biggest brands, but certainly got some of the best players. The problem is, in parts of the world, this game was broadcast at 3:45 a.m. in China. The television presenter, Dong Lu, fell asleep halfway through the commentary and started snoring live on air. He was literally commentating and he started to fall asleep, and you can listen to it and hear it, and you can suddenly start to hear him snoring on air.
Well, that's not what you see every week. John Motson would be appalled, turning in his grave.
I didn't see the game. Was it just a boring game, or was it just the fact that it was just early in the morning for them?
It wasn't the best game. There was one freak goal in it, and that was about it. But, I don't think John Motson ever sleeps. I just think he constantly thinks football.
Funny enough, the guy has now been sacked. And probably as he's in China, he's disappeared as well.
I'm not sure we should be making a punchline out of, death, but fine.
Yeah, they're human rights.
We'll move on.
The other thing to add on to this quick, I don't know if you've seen this, a fellow listener to the podcast, Daniel Patience, actually commented on something goes, so hi Dan, thanks for this. Remember last week when I talked about the Turkish team that locked the linesmen and the referees away?
Yes.
The president of the club has now been officially suspended for 280 days due to this. So he is now suspended from all footballing actions for 280 days.
So he's avoided jail for effectively imprisoning people, and his only punishment is to be banned from football-related activities for 280 days.
Yep.
Do we know if he's getting full pay during that time? Because I've just been getting sick.
You know what? We need to try this at work, don't we? Locking our boss in a cupboard and see what happens.
But just say I was doing it for footballing reasons.
Yeah. Because you know what? All of us would get sacked, probably a fine or in prison as well. We'd never be employed again. This guy's probably sat at home, big glass of whiskey going, fantastic, 280-day holiday. Love it. It's a different world, isn't it?
It is, in fact, a different world. I'm not going to lock my boss in the cupboard, if you're listening. That is 280 days. Who knew? Has anyone got anything else to add before I wrap this up and finally go and eat some food?
No.
Nothing to add, Rogers?
What are we having for dinner?
I don't know. Bread.
Last thing for me is all I'm going to say at the end is like the Facebook page, please.
Yes, like the Facebook page. Listen to the podcast. Send us comments and someone may reply.
We are so close to that 100 people liking our Facebook page. Now invite your friends. Get everyone liking our page that loves football. Trust me, they'll love it.
And like we said, lots of debating points today. Who's going to take over at Chelsea? Club or country debate. Who's in charge? Obviously, don't listen to Mez because he's wrong. But yes, get involved, send us comments, and there's no prizes for any of it. So thank you very much, and Hona will be back next week.
Thanks so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for stepping in as guest host.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, Bryce.
Thank you very much for having me.
We look forward to your articles this week because they're pretty tasty, your ones.
Well, I'm glad you think so. I get to the end and normally think they're utter tripe. So I'm glad someone else is enjoying them. Thanks for having me, and I guess you'll all be back next week.
Yeah.
Yes, we will.
There we go.